and more to be discovered. Because this thing called the I am is infinite and eternal, never ending and forever creating. This is what it does. This is its nature, is to create. And it creates out of these qualities of abundance and balance and beauty and joy and love and truth and wisdom and wholeness, all of these and more. Because that is what it is. And so everything that we see in the material, mechanical, physical world is a projection out of that which is the essence and the eternal and the infinite that we know as God. That we are trying to understand, that we are trying to rediscover, that we are trying to figure out all the whys and the how-tos and the wherefores. Because there is a divine inner urge within us that says that if I am, by my very nature, the essence of that which is divinity, then it is within me, as me, through me, to be creative. I must be creative. That is the whole process of being divine. I get to move through that. I get to bring that forth. And so that's what we're doing. We are creating day in and day out. Now, for a long time, humanity has been doing this in a really unconscious, subconscious, unaware sort of way. How do I know that? Well, just look at the world. If we were aware, if we were really conscious of what we were doing, we would not have created the mess that we're in. And yet, there's something within us that says that this can be changed. That we can bring something better because we are the creative process in motion. We are the consciousness. We are the awareness. We are the intelligence that is working in the world. It is the way in which divine spirit, the invisible, the infinite intelligence, gets to have its way in the world is by putting itself out there into form, into manifestation, into some demonstration. All through the idea, through the thought, through the mind. Ernest Holmes says in his textbook, and I found it in some other places, there was an individual, Ralph Waldo Trine, who was an author sometime back in the 1800s. And I know that he influenced Ernest Holmes. And one of the books he wrote is The Greatest Thing Ever Known. And right there in chapter 1, Ernest Holmes took it as his own and said, the greatest thing ever discovered, changed it just enough so that it could be his. The greatest thing ever known is that we have awareness. We have consciousness. We have the capacity to think, to use our mind. And out of that, we create. We're bringing forth into the world all of these thoughts and thinkings and patterns and concepts that we can come up with. And so what gets projected out into the world is all of those wild and crazy thoughts that we're having. Now, there's a little process that goes with this. We call it the creative process. Because simply having a thought does not necessarily end up in a result of having a demonstration. That's why there are so many people who are sitting someplace in some church, center, synagogue, temple, wherever, maybe just in nature, and they're beginning to think, well, I have this creative process. If I sit here and I think about this long enough and hard enough, then I will create in my life the consciousness of wealth that I want, the abundance that I want, the prosperity that I want, the relationship that I want. If I can just will it hard enough, then it will happen. But that is not the creative process. That is not how it works. And that's why a lot of people are still sitting there in that rut, waiting for something to happen, waiting for some experience to come through, because they haven't put any emotion to it. They haven't put any feeling to it. They haven't taken it on as their own. And they have not taken any action. Do you get this? You can have the thought, but you must put behind it some feeling. There must be some passion to it. Because if you don't really believe it, if you don't really own it, if you don't really desire it, then it is not going to come forth into demonstration. And then you have to do something with it, about it, for it, around it, to it, in order for it to come into that physical form that you want. Now, we prove this all the time and how well this works. Because we sit around and we have these thoughts that look like judgment, that look like hate, that look like lack and limitation. And we've got a lot of emotion about that. We have a lot of passion around those things. You know, we can be driving on the freeway and we can have that car pull in front of us, and boy, do we have the thought, and do we have the passion, and do we have the ability to take action on what we want to do about this person that's driving on my road. And so we bring experience into our life. If we know this, if we can look at our day-to-day life and see what it is that we are bringing about, then we absolutely know that we have that power and presence within us to bring forth the greater good, the absolute perfection and wholeness of who and what we are. Now is the time. We are the people. The world is waiting upon us in order to bring forth something even greater. I'm teaching a class with some wannabe ministerial individuals. The question is, why? Why? Yeah. I know why. And it's because we want to grow our consciousness. We want to come into something greater. We want to evolve into that perfection and that wholeness. And it doesn't require that you have to go to ministerial school to get there. But when you spend as much time and effort into doing this, it just makes sense you might as well go along and get the credit for it too. But you can do that without having to go to ministerial school. You can bring your consciousness and your growth into this awareness. But in this class, we had the opportunity this week to view an interview that was around the individual Jack Canfield, who created the books Chicken Soup for the Soul. Anybody that has not heard of Chicken Soup for the Soul? Okay, good. So you have an idea of who Jack Canfield is and how he's been able to transform the world in so many ways, the lives of individuals. And he's been able to, kind of like put them in little categories and little, silos of ways to do it. So there's, the chicken soup for the teenager, and chicken soup for, the parent, and chicken soup